Good morning and welcome. We're back for another fantastic breakfast show. David Bell here and joined in the virtual studio with Mr. Nick Luby. Good morning, Nick.
Morning, David. Very excited as always. You're absolutely right. Here we are again. Thursday morning, 8 o'clock. An awesome breakfast show coming your way, audience. And as always, feel free to chip in, to comment, to let us know how we're doing, to ask questions of us, ask questions of our awesome guests who are coming up. Join in the conversation and we'll bring in your comments. We'll get you involved, and the more, as always, the merrier. How you doing, David? How's your week been?
Wow, it's been a busy week, a great week, really good. Obviously, things are starting to get back to some normality. People are venturing out. I must admit, I went out earlier this week, and my God, the traffic. It's just ludicrous. Now, you've got to bear in mind, I spent the last 6 months pretty much living in Spain. And if you go out, you don't see another car when you drive down the road. I come back over here, isolate for, my 10 days and be good and stuff like that. And then lockdown starts to ease. And I go out and it's just like the M25 everywhere. Busy, busy, busy. But no, it's great. It's great. It's nice to go out now, isn't it? Go in. I've walked into a couple of Costa coffees and stuff like that and grabbed a takeaway. And yeah, so it's nice to just start to see the change coming back round to some type of normality. And I've even got, get this now, I've even got some meetings set in the diary in a few weeks' time to meet face to face. I'm just, I'm so excited. But it's great. It is nice. We're kind of getting some normality. What about yourself, Nick?
Yeah, similar, right? A busy-ish week. It's kind of that crux start of the new financial year, still kind of rolling along. But yeah, glimpses of normality returning. Similarly, right, Monday, went to see my accountant on the M11. I'm stuck in traffic, moaning at myself, right? Thinking, well, I've not missed this, right? Stuck in traffic, couldn't believe it. Went to the tip, right? Like a normal person, having a great time. I couldn't believe it, right? I'm smiling like a child because I've gone to the tip. So yeah, glimmers of kind of things getting back to normal. I know when I spoke to Ben earlier in the week, and he'll be on in a little while. He's had face-to-face interactions as well. Oh, bloody hell! I think thinking there was a time thinking, will we ever get back to having a cup of coffee with our colleagues across the way? And no doubt people have started to creep back to the office. What do you reckon? Have you heard of colleagues getting back into the office?
There's absolutely. I think I read actually the other day or beginning of this week, about 50% of people are going to be returning to their place of work. The other 50% are probably the ones that, do you know what? I love working from home. What a different lifestyle I now have. No commuting, no standing on the train, no standing on that platform, freezing cold, trying to hold my coffee wearing gloves. So I think we've got a real kind of hybrid version coming round now. Some people are going to return. Some people are going to stay working from home. I think some people will go back and do a few days in the office, few days from home. So I think it's going to be quite exciting. I mean, look, let's be very blunt here. We're not at the end of this pandemic by any stretch of the imagination, and there's always potential for a third wave, for things to go backwards rather than forwards. So we've got to stay positive, but we've got to be practical. Okay, we need to get back out there. Nick, you know more about being human and communicating than most of us, being a budding author, and that's what you talk about, communications in the real world and stuff like that. So we've got to be realistic. We need to get back out there. We need to start building, reconnecting, and doing some face-to-face stuff. Digital's great. I love doing this show, and I love a lot of the stuff I've done over the weeks and months and the past year. But there's something about just looking down this thing here, this camera. It's not quite the same. I can't see your body language all the time, and I can't give you a punch in the arm when I think you're funny or you're taking the mick or something like that. I just have to kind of poke you in the eyes virtually. But look, we're getting back there. We're slowly getting back there. So I'm looking forward to it. Really am. We've got a great lineup this morning as well.
Oh, mate. Oh, big guns coming. Big guns. Really, really good guests. As always, mate. Great guests. So much to ask. So much to learn. And, I've so missed that face-to-face, real kind of very natural human interaction. And I know both of our guests very well, and we've had plenty of those interactions. That one of the big struggles, I think one of the biggest challenges, certainly I will have, and most businesses will have, is building or maintaining strong business relationships if we minimize the real face-to-face stuff. So this is great. Okay, got us out of a massive hole. The tech kind of held up, and it's changed the way that we'll do business. But I think without going back to the more face-to-face, natural, very human-centric ways that we communicate, going to be really difficult to certainly build new relationships and maintain the real kind of close, strong ones that we've already got.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nick, what's been happening in the news this week? Obviously, we're both extremely busy, which is good from our perspectives. We know our guests that are coming onto the show are going to be talking a bit about their business, and I've had lots of collaborations over the past several weeks. And some people are absolutely flat out; they just can't physically handle any more work, which is fantastic. But also, on the flip side, there's some businesses that are still finding their way, getting their doors back open, welcoming back in the likes of you and I back in there to, buy from the shops. We've got shops disappearing. Went into Debenhams this week as well. When I went out, I went to Debenhams and I thought I'd have a look in there. My God, it's like the biggest jumble sale in the world. What else is happening out there? Not just in the high street, but globally. What's in the news this week, Nick?
Well, I think that the evolution of business continues, right? So I look on the news this morning. It looks, and Sainsbury's are posting some chunky losses. Okay, and there's a host of reasons. One of which is the money they've had to spend to make stores safe over the COVID during the pandemic, closing a load of standalone Argos stores. So they've taken a big hit, but their future is more kind of localized, smaller stores on the back of more people are going to be working from home. They're going to be in the office less. So they're likely to shop more locally. So I know, and we've seen this happen, right? All of the big stores moved out of town. Now it seems as though maybe the big stores will start moving back in a different form back into town. If you got your old pair of bloody flares sitting in the wardrobe, at some point they'll come back, and things seem very circular. Things are coming back. Not the flares, actually they are, right? Kids are wearing flares, aren't they?
It is a really funny thing. I was sitting there reading through the newspaper on my iPad. Obviously, being a digital guy, I don't have paper anymore. Everything's digital. I'm going through, and there was an article. Crocs are coming back into fashion. Now, for those that don't know, these Crocs are these rubbery type shoes that you put on. They're a bit like open back sandals with a strap on there. I've got a pair of Crocs. I thought they were in fashion. And here I am reading that they're coming back. So you're talking about flares coming back. It seems things do this full circle. But what else I picked up in the news, I'm a big Apple fan, okay? Have been for many, many years. I love the product. I love the way it works. I know it feels. I know you are as well, Nick, even though you're not the biggest digital person in the world. I know you love your Apple devices. Look there in your ears. You've got your laptop there. I'm exactly the same. And this is interesting because Apple's profits double as it squares up to Facebook. And for those that are following the news, you'll know what this story is about, but their profit has doubled to $23.6 billion, up from $11.3 billion from last year. Unbelievable, amounts of profit, but obviously global company, top company, tech company in the world. And this argument, Facebook, Apple have launched their iOS 14.5. If you haven't downloaded it, it's safe to do so. Come out earlier this week, and it's stopping all tracking. By default, you have to say, yes, I want to be tracked by the likes of Facebook. So when you get these adverts, when you're scrolling down your Facebook feed, which some of you are probably doing now and going, oh, look, there's Dave and Nick. I'll forget them. Oh, that looks interesting. There is Dave and Nick. That's put there. It's strategically put there, those adverts based on what you search for, what you look at. And basically, Apple have said, we're not going to let you do that anymore, Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, hey, I won't do the rude fingers up there, but we don't want to be part of it. And they're blocking it all. So it's going to have a big change in the marketing front, digital marketing front. So we'll see what that kind of unfolds over the coming months, but the battle continues.
Yeah, bring it on. Bring on that battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fed up of talking about something and then going online and then finding adverts for it. And whoever's advertising for funeral plans and life insurance and anything just because I turned 50, for Christ's sake. Whoever's throwing those adverts at me, please stop. All right, I'm in good health, I think. Okay, so don't give me a few more years before you hit me with those ads.
You look good, but that could be very deceiving because, you know, you've got touch up on the cameras and stuff like that these days. And you can make yourself look at me. I mean, I've purposely given myself grey hair for this show. Nick, I think what we're going to do, we're going to go to a quick ad break. And when we come back, let's get our first guest on the show.
Bring it on, man.
Well, Nick, I'm going to let you introduce our first guest of the morning and give him a big warm welcome.
Thank you very much, David. It's an absolute pleasure to invite our first guest on. I've known Nick for some considerable years. We go back a long way. A phenomenal story that he's got for us, and relatively new to business. So this will be fascinating. So let's bring him on. No further ado. Everybody online, streaming right now, please welcome the magical Nick Inge.
And here he is, live in the virtual studio. Good morning, Nick.
Hello, Nick, mate. How are you doing?
Very well, gentlemen. Nice to be here, and thank you for inviting me on this morning.
Absolute pleasure, my friend. Absolute pleasure. And you've got a fascinating story for us, right? So, new to business, where have you been? What have you been doing before you got onto this business roller coaster? Give us a bit of background.
Well, how far do you want me to go back? Well, I'll start with going to Newcastle Poly in the day, a Polytechnic, if you remember those.
Yeah.
Not some highbrow university, not for me. Oh, no, not for me. So I left university, or Polytechnic, sorry, went on a gap year and then decided to become a chartered accountant. Found that very dull. Nothing against chartered accountancy, obviously, but it wasn't my thing. So I decided to completely pivot and join the police. So I joined the police in 1994. After 3 and a bit years, went into what they call intelligence policing, which a lot of my friends thinking those two words don't go together, Nick Inge and intelligence. However, I went along that line and developed a career in the police, mainly for nearly 20 years, recruiting and managing informants, which is all very line of duty-esque, which sounds very sexy, but really it's all about taking information, keeping that person safe, and then passing the information on. There's nothing more glamorous than that. But that was from the shoplifting world through to the counter-terrorism world. I'm no James Bond. If you saw me coming out the English Channel in a pair of Speedos, gentlemen, it's not very pretty. So I did that, and then I decided to retire at age 50. I could have stayed on for a lot longer, but life's too short. So I thought, you know, I'll go into business because I'd already this passion for doing my own thing. It can get very restrictive in the police in terms of rules and regulations, and rightly so. That's what they have to do, keep discipline and stuff. But with my skill set in informant handling, I decided to set up a whistleblowing consultancy. And you might think, what the hell is that? Sometimes I still do, to be fair. But basically, we give support and guidance to organisations who want to empower their staff to speak up. In the same way I did that in the police, encouraging people to speak about criminality. So the business is called iTrust Assurance. And we are about to launch our own Speak Up app, anonymous app, so people can report wrongdoing in the workplace, as well as doing training. So you guys are talking about face-to-face meeting other humans. God forbid, what's that about? And I might even go meet some humans in being a pair of Crocs, just to really mix it up. But yeah, so we're doing some training for a charity in Kent in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to see them today just to finalise. I'm going to see another human in person today. I'm so excited to talk about the training program for the afternoon. And yeah, so we do the consultancy work, the training, the app. And alongside that, I've got a community interest company called Worldly Wise, which is an organisation which empowers young people in schools and colleges in the southeast of England and further afield now about pivoting and doing what they want to do in life, rather than just being told what to do by their parents or the careers master or careers teacher, which is going great guns. And it's not even it's a sell. You know, schools are having obviously to play catch up in terms of COVID with their students and trying to find virtual work experience, and they want a free resource which we're offering and doing and engaging with them. So it's not a sell, it's just a case of trying to control that at the minute. So I've got the social enterprise and the limited company, I'm also a volunteer enterprise advisor for a school in Kent through a company called the Careers and Enterprise Company, which is great. And I got a couple of books out. Apart from that, Nick, I'm not a lot going on, mate.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, mate. We'll go on to Worldly Wise. Just that transition from policing into business. I guess one of the things that carries from both parts of your world is how to build relationships, right? Strong relationships, and then move those relationships into a business environment where culture is king. And I guess if your business has got a culture where you encourage your staff to have the courage to speak up. If there's something not right, speak up. And if you're enabling staff to be able to do that, that's cool, right? That's great for culture, great for relationships, great for a healthy business environment. And you for 2 years into this business environment, you know how to build relationships. Mate, you are, and you network, you spread the word. Everybody knows what's going on. Your books are going phenomenally well because you're great at just spreading the word. Here it is. It's what it's about. We got a picture, haven't we, David, of the books?
There they are.
Yeah, exposing the truth, whistleblowing uncovered, and so one's a business book, Nick, and one's non-fiction, right? Non-fiction and fiction.
Yeah, so that's very kind of you to say all those lovely things, Nick, and the checks in the post, mate. The first
Brilliant.
book, Exposing the Truth, Whistleblowing Uncovered, is a book which is it's a guide. It's nothing highbrow. It's not an academic research paper, and not based on anything I've ever done academically. But it's a guide for people who are thinking about speaking up or who have spoken up and are going through that process of, have I done the right thing? What's going to happen to me? How would I feel? But you have to speak up, because otherwise issues in society never go away, such as bullying, such as racism, such as sexual misconduct, corruption, fraud, theft, et al. So yeah, the book is not a highbrow guide. It's literally a guide for people who are thinking, like I say, or who have spoken up, because it can be a very lonely place speaking up. You wonder whether you've done the right thing, because potentially there could be retaliation. You could be seen as a grass or a snitch, which no one ever wants to be seen as. No one admits to being that. No one wants to be a career whistleblower, for example. And when I do a presentation, one of the first questions I ask is, put your hand up in the room if you've ever been a grass or a snitch. And no one ever does. And those who rarely do, funny enough, everyone looks at them and goes, you're the snitch. Look, and even in an organization, if someone speaks up anonymously, what management generally do is trying to find out who it is, hunt the source. They don't actually try and deal with the nature of the allegation or the disclosure. They go, who could it be, right? And you look at Line of Duty at the minute. If you're watching Line of Duty, it's all about who's the fourth man. Who is it? Everyone likes to know. But the first book is like I say, it's that emotional crutch for someone who could be struggling, or to decide to speak up, or how has spoken up. I keep repeating myself, but it's that base, because it is a very, very base human emotion to basically go against the grain, you feel like you're going against the organization. And going back to my old policing world, we used to recruit people, and it's all based on trust. That's why I call the business iTrust assurance. Trust is a massively powerful word, and your expertise, Nick, is in communication, and you know far better than I do. But when we used to recruit people in the police, they were talking about criminality, and the consequences for them being found out where they'd probably end up 6 foot under in Hackney Marshes. And that's not a joke, at the most serious end of it. And you go down the scale in terms of the corporate world, and how people potentially could lose their job because they get made redundant, or they get ostracized in their sphere of work because all of a sudden they get a bad name because they're a troublemaker. But 9 times out of 10, they're not a troublemaker. They're just telling the truth. But the organization doesn't want to hear about it, because they don't want to have that bad reputation outward facing for their clients and customers and everything else. But it's the trust element, and the networking that you mentioned is all about building relationships. No different from my old world informant handling. You have to build a relationship. You can't just go get on the telephone and say to someone, "Grass your mates up and tell us who's doing the burglaries." It doesn't happen that. You got to go and have a coffee. You got to go and meet them face to face. You got to go and shake their hand. God forbid we ever do that one day, instead of just this sort of funky chicken stuff. But you have to get off your backside and go and see people. And this is fantastic. I've networked, massively online, obviously, like we all have, since this time last year when lockdown 1 along came along. It's like a film, doesn't it? Lockdown 1, the sequel, Lockdown 2, and hopefully we won't have Lockdown 3. But you know what I mean? It's all about building relationships, gaining someone's trust, shaking their hand, and doing something for them. And funny enough, thanking them. It goes a long way. Thanking them for basically doing the right thing, speaking up in the criminal world, speaking up in the corporate world, because 9 times out of 10, a lot of people know that information, but a lot of people don't want to say anything because they stay silent. They ignore it. They either leave the organization, go sick, or become what I call the internal terrorists and start spreading gossip and rumors. And that's no good for anyone. That's when you have a toxic culture. And if you nip it in the bud and encourage that speak up culture, in the same way that, you go back into my old world of criminality, not my old world of criminality, sorry, the people that I was dealing with, if they are empowered to speak up and you keep them safe, they'll tell you everything. They'll tell you everything about, even basic shop, even if they're talking about high level serious criminality, they'll still talk about shoplifting because they trust you. They trust you to keep them safe and do something with the information. There's nothing worse than encouraging someone to speak up, whether in the criminal world or the corporate world. You've given them systems and training and a safe platform to anonymously report stuff, and then the organization does nothing with it because they're going to think, what's the point? What is the point? I've gone through all this emotional baggage and turmoil and everything else, and then for what? For absolutely nothing. And in my old world of policing, 6 of us made disclosures against some wrongdoing in the force I was in, and one of my old team said, and this is a terrible thing to say really, but he said, not for him, but it's a indictment on the organization. He said, if I knew what wasn't going to happen, I wouldn't have put myself through it. And that's not a good place to be, because then what happens is he then tells other people and they think, well, what's the point? And the whole thing just carries on. So you have to have, if you've got a speak up mechanism in an organization, a robust system, a credible system, and a system that actually works. Otherwise, there's no point. It becomes a tick box exercise. And I look through different policies that people have in their organizations about their whistleblowing policy, and half of it's not worth the paper it's written on. It's more of a bottom covering exercise for that organization to say, you can speak up, but when you actually read it, you think, what's the blinking point? There's no point having it. You're just covering your own bottoms.
Nick, I've got so many questions. I really want to ask this question. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, line of duty. Now, I can't say I've sat and seen them all by any standards, but is it real to life, or do you sit there and go, my God, they need to get me on there because they're making so many fundamental errors and this is just ridiculous? Does it frustrate you and annoy you?
Well, do you know what, David? I never watch hardly any TV at all, apart from In for a Penny with Stephen Mulhern, right? And if you watch that, it's a lot of old nonsense, but it's good fun. And Would I Lie to You? And I've had to watch Line of Duty recently for something else I was doing. And it's obviously over dramatized to get, obviously that's why it's got the highest viewing figures since whatever program was the highest viewing figures before that, which is a ridiculous thing to say, I know, but it's obviously for the TV and everything. But having worked in that world of managing informants who talked about corruption in the police for a long time, there are very long, strong lines, excuse the pun, of truth running through it. Right. So even though if you've never worked in that world, you think, oh, this is just all a lot of old made up nonsense. Believe you me, it's like a lot of things. You get into any industry, and then you start seeing it warts and all. And when I joined the police, you do it with all the best intentions. I joined the police because I wanted to help. I remember being interviewed, and they said, "Why do you want to join the police?" I said, "Well, if an old lady crosses the road and gets mugged, I want to catch the person who's mugged her because that's out of order." As you go through, you get more cynical as you get older and grayer. And you start seeing other things as well. And when you start getting into that world, you think, hold on a minute, I've joined a job here, and there's people giving away secrets about the work that we're doing. So when we go and kick a door in, having recruited an informant, and someone's giving away the secret, what's the point? And then you start thinking, well, who can I trust? And then the whole thing. And this is one of the reasons why I got out when I did, because I was thinking, hold on a minute, my life's too short here. I only on this planet for X amount of years, and I've done a bit. Not that I've changed the world at all. I'm not the new Messiah. I'm no Gandhi or anything like that. But what I've done, and I want to do I want to do something else now. And I'll get to the point where, I wouldn't have spoken up along with my team on day one in the police because, I would have done myself any favors at all. And to be honest, I've really wet behind the ears. And like anything in life, you get older and wiser as you go through. You get to the point where you're thinking, hold on a minute, this ain't quite right. This isn't right. And I'm not getting paid a lot of money here. It's all right. I've had a nice lifestyle out of it, but I'm not a multi-millionaire out of joining the police. In fact, my son, who's a bit of an entrepreneur, he said to me a few years ago when I picked him up from the gym after went to the gym after school, and he said, "How much you earn today, Dad?" I said, "Oh," he went, "What?" I went, "Yeah." I said, "I'm not being funny. I have decent rank, I suppose, for what I was doing and taking a lot of responsibility on in my own little world, and I'm getting paid that." And then you start, hold a minute, you know what I mean?
That's
Life.
what,
Sorry, go on.
that's why you retired and set up your own business. You've seen the magical ways. It's quite often, actually, I work with business owners. And I say to them, "Why you set up your own business?" And they give me kind of 3 or 4 different reasons. And most of the time, people say, "I want more time to do what I want to do when I want to do it." Flexibility. If I want to go and see my children in the school play, I can go and do it. If I want to finish early, if I want to go on holiday, right? Okay, brilliant. And then they also say, to earn more money. I've been working really hard for this organization and doing such a hard job, and I'm bringing all that money in, and I'm only seeing a small portion. And lots of people set up, not always, but quite a lot of people set their business up on those 2 things. Ask them in a year later, "How's it going?" Do you know what? If I'd have known this when I started, I was earning, and I'm working harder than I've ever worked. But yeah, there we go. Nick, worldly wise, let's come back to that, but let's just run a little bit of VT. Let's just show a little bit of what worldly wise is all about, and you can just give us a little bit of a background how it come to be. Let's watch the video now.
There's such wisdom in the saying that the greatest gift we can hand to our next generation is the gift of knowledge. Educating them, inspiring them, helping them grow, fueling ambition and providing the confidence our young people need to fulfill their vast potential. They have the whole of their lives in front of them to choose the things that will bring them joy and emotional wealth. We'll meet them at schools, at colleges, universities and youth clubs. In every moment, we will invite them to embrace their future by learning from those who have a rich past.
You have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. There's so much to see. There's so much to explore. There's so many people to meet, and you can't stay at home forever. There's a big wide world out there, so just go and see it.
Becoming the best they can be. Becoming worldly wise.
Very cool, mate. Very cool. What's so tell us what makes me want to travel. That's for sure. How did that come about? What's Worldly Wise all about, mate?
Yeah, just very quickly, traveling, it means more than just getting stuck on the M11. Right. Well, the young lady at the end of that video is our daughter, and she left school nearly 2 years ago, wanted to go on a gap year, traveling around Southeast Asia with her 2 friends. It's a very long story, but we got together with a friend of mine who trained me when I joined the police, a fella called Travell Henry, really lovely fella, and he basically put together a bespoke course for the 3 young ladies who, before they went off to Southeast Asia, because 2 of them had never been outside of Europe. And on the back of it, the girls said, "Yeah, we really love this. It makes us feel safe and more secure. And as parents, it made us feel better. And it's not about us, but it's about them keeping safe." But basically, we got a lot of interest in what we were doing, and it snowballed really quickly. We thought we better do something more substantial rather than just talking about it. So we created a CIC. And here we are nearly a year down the line with an organisation which supports and guides young people in schools and colleges, and just helps them with their decision making. So if they're 16, 17, 18, for example, and they don't think they've got a cat and hell chance of making it in life because they're not particularly academically able, or they've got something going on at home, or they've got a disability, or they just don't think they've got much of a chance. Well, our biobank of over 50 people now, we call it a biobank. It's fantastic people who want to give something back and talk about their careers and lives and how they pivoted and all the qualities you need in life to get through, i.e. determination, courage, leadership, flexibility, communication, friendship, network, and all these sort of things where you can really achieve what you really want to if you put your mind to it. And it's not highbrow. We're not talking, you're going to win X Factor and all that. It's literally if you started out as a rhino keeper at a zoo, like one of the fellas has, he's now a manager of Belmarsh Cat A prison in Southeast London. How do you go on that journey? And it's all those sort of stories which inspire people. So that's what the video's about. I certainly didn't, I can hardly take a picture on an iPhone, let alone do anything like that. So we've got some fantastic people around us, put together by a BAFTA nominated cameraman. There you go. I won't say any more than that. He's a top fella. But yeah, that's what we're about, and it's very popular, and we get something out of it. And if it inspires one young person to, do something with their lives, because the three of us have all had journeys in life, and in 30 years' time, some young person says, we had an input, on something called Zoom. And they go, what is Zoom? Something in the history books. And it said, yeah, I remember that conversation and that assembly we had by someone from the Biobank, something called Worldly Wise. That's what it's about, empowering young people to do what they really want to do in life. And going back to the iTrust world, it's about empowering someone to speak up. It's about empowering Worldly Wise young people to do what they want, and have a vision outside of what a careers advisor might think is good for them, not what they necessarily want to do. Just opening their eyes up to the world and giving Worldly Wise advice.
It's
great video. Absolutely
really
great
cool,
video.
mate.
When Nick,
Very cool. Sorry, David, go on. So much to say. Go on.
I know, and time is ticking. And I was just going to say, when Nick and I were, we always source through a little bit of the background about our guests coming on the show. And it's like, that video is got to be there. It's really, really cool. Really kind of energetic, and really gets across, what you're trying to do and how you're, supporting and helping. So, yeah, I just want to give you a big thumbs up for the video. But we are getting close to the end of our time with you. Our next guest is sitting in the virtual green room waiting to get on here and tell us his story as well. But I want to make sure we do get one last plug along with a question. And going back to your books, how can our listeners, our viewers, if they want to get hold of these, where can they go and grab them from?
Well, thank you for the plug, David, and the chance for me to plug the books as well. They go on Amazon and search Nick Inge in Amazon in that search bar, and my name will pop up and you'll see the two books. Very easy to order, and I look forward to seeing the sales flooding in. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Will you do sign copies if people email you? Would you sign a copy for them?
I can sign them, yeah. I'm hoping to do a book signing at a bookshop, maybe even Blue Ward at some point, but yeah, it'd be nice to see them face to face, and that human contact even always best, isn't it? So
just so rock and roll, man. It's so rock and roll. This is the rock and roll of our age, us business people. Yeah, book signings. Yeah. Good, great fun. Take some pictures when the queue's long. It's great. Always good, mate. It's been a joy. It's been a joy and a pleasure. And we say this quite often, but would love to get you back on the show. See how your journey's progressing. See how your son's entrepreneurial journey is also progressing. So I know he's a driving force right behind you. It puts us all to shame. We'll talk about him perhaps next time. But yeah, really inspiring stuff, mate. A phenomenal journey that you've been on. And the Worldly Wise video kind of sums it up. It's about confidence. It's about joy, and everything you do, mate. It's touched with that joy. You bring that joy to every environment. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, my friend. Thank you very much indeed.
Guys, thank you ever so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and what you're doing is amazing as well. So thanks ever so much, and I'd love to come on again. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye-bye. Wow, Nick, exciting start to the show. It's that clock. It just doesn't go slow enough for us. We've got so many questions. There's so much to ask and just not enough time to get everything in. We're going to have to start, making these shows more regular, which is quite an interesting thing. I've had hot news pop in my email box while we've been sitting here. Nick and I have been working on supporting a up-and-coming event. It's for those that are interested in showcasing their business, coming on the 11th, 12th and 13th of May, so not too long away, a few weeks away, is the EXSE show. EXSE 2021, 11th to 13th of May. Now, this is a virtual. We'd love to obviously be all in the room, but we're not quite there yet. But this is a virtual show where you can come along and exhibit. So you can be an exhibitor, you can book yourself a stand. Alternatively, you might just want to come along and have a look around. Just come and meet some of the stand holders. There's a lot of fabulous speakers. There's lots of great sponsors. Funny enough, Nick, you and I are speaking at that event. We've got our own slots where we're going to be talking about what we're passionate about. But the hot news, which I've got to share, and Nick knows this is coming because we've been working on this over the last week, is that we're going to be running the breakfast show on the 11th, the 12th and 13th. We are going to be running the breakfast show for EXSE, and we're going to be interviewing the exciting speakers We're going to be talking to the fantastic sponsors, and we're going to be grabbing some random people, as much as you can do virtually, of course, grabbing some random people and finding out their experience of the show, how they're finding it. And, it's just an amazing thing. This is one of the first of this type I've been involved with, because this is quite a big, it's for the east of England and southeast of England, because it's online and virtual, it's global. Anyone around the world can have a stand. Anyone around the world can come and exhibit, be a sponsor, and be part of it. So I'll just pop that back up there again. 11th to the 13th of May. More information's on the website, exe.co.uk. That's exse.co.uk. Go online, book yourself a free ticket to virtually come and see it. Book yourself a stand if you want to exhibit at it. And tune in to Dave and Nick each day, where we'll be having those fantastic conversations. So there you go,
Great.
Nick. It's now official. Stamped
Excellent news. Very excited about that, mate. Very excited about expanding what the breakfast show can offer the business community. I like the idea. This virtual grabbing. You said it, not me. All right, we'll grab strangers, we'll grab visitors, we'll grab exhibitors, and it's great to have a conversation. All right, I love the relaxed nature of the show. It's just a series of conversations. That's what business looks like, right? For me, a series of conversations, and what a great opportunity to get loads of like-minded people together in a virtual environment and have some really healthy and hopefully valuable conversations. Very excited.
A great comment coming earlier, Nick. I don't know if you saw it pop up into the comments box. I'm going to put it up on the screen for the world to see. Here it is. It's from Colin. Good morning, both. Taking my cue from Nick here. Must look at my smart shirt collection. Note to self. Colin's a future speaker coming on the show next week.
Next week. Excellent.
Colin, if you want to beat Nick's shirt, you're going to have to go some way, because that is a pretty loud and cool shirt, I will say. I made the effort today as well to pop the shirt on.
Nice.
But Colin will be joining us next week.
Yes, indeed.
So, Nick, I think it's time to queue up our next guest, sitting very patiently in the back green room there, waiting to come on stage and tell us about his business and what he does. But let's just go to a quick ad break, and when we're back, we'll get our next guest on the show. Well, over to you, Nick.
Thank you very much again, David, and another great guest. We're so lucky, we're so fortunate. A pleasure to welcome a great friend, great business leadership guru onto the show. Please, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the magical Ben Morton.
There he is. Good morning. Oh,
can't hear you, Ben. Oh,
we can't hear you, Ben. I'm not gonna better lip read. Oh, let's see.
This is the beauty of a show where anything can happen.
Live.
How many times have over the last 12 months have you had kind of tech issues?
Every week.
Does that work?
It does work. Yes. See, nothing we can't overcome. It's not our first time.
How many times I've had tech issues? Many times over the last 12 months.
Yeah. How are you doing, mate? How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, I was enjoying the show in the green room backstage. I did wonder, is this what it's like on the Jonathan Ross show? Then I realised I was sitting by myself, not with someone like Sting and Kylie, but it's been great nonetheless.
Yeah, we've not yet had approaches from either Sting or Kylie, but we'll give them good consideration if they knock on our door. Be great, wouldn't it? Be great, ridiculous, but great. So Ben, tell us about yourself. Tell us about Ben Morton Leadership. How did that come about?
Wow. So where do I start? So if my mum were sitting next to me, she would probably tell you that I decided to join the army about 5 years old. I'm not quite convinced it was that early, but it was certainly sort of early teens. Anyway, the short version of the story is I joined the army at 16, aspiring to be a leader. went through Sandhurst, did a couple of operational tours overseas in Iraq, and then left in around about 2006 as a captain, having sort of been second in command of a squadron of 150 odd soldiers. From there, I did a few sort of corporate HRE type jobs, worked for a sort of profit-making youth development company. We sent 16, 17, 18-year-old kids away on month-long expeditions. So kind of really resonated with what Nick was talking about just now. Did that, kind of ended up stepping into some HR roles. That business got bought by TUI Travel. So went from being part of a entrepreneurial high growth business getting ready to be sold, then suddenly sucked into the world's biggest travel company. Kind of saw the writing on the door, if I'm honest, and knew that kind of my job and my team would probably be made redundant eventually. So spent a year working to make me and my team redundant, which actually was a really, really good year. From there, kind of I went and worked at Tesco, so another massive organization in their Global Leadership Academy. And again, to cut a long story short there, the job I joined to do suddenly didn't exist within sort of 6 weeks of me joining the company. So scrabbled around to find another job in the organization, which is looking after all the digital learning that supported the face-to-face stuff. Remember that face-to-face training? And then I didn't realize this very early, but my wife spotted it. I suddenly realized, which she spotted before me, that I didn't fit Tesco at that time, and Tesco didn't fit me in terms of values. And it was making me perform way below my sort of capabilities. It was making me probably miserable at home, certainly a little bit miserable at work. And then I happened to bump into a guy who ran a business called 21 Leadership, who was running some training. So I thought, do you know what? To your point earlier, David, I'm going to give this a go, working for myself, and went and joined that business as the sort of the third partner, which was around about seven, 8 years ago. And then probably 2 or 3 years ago, kind of started having thoughts about building my own thing. So I probably realized I was much more entrepreneurial than I ever thought I was, and the thought of building something that was mine and having total freedom and flexibility and autonomy just starting to like give me more and more energy. And then I got invited on this show, so that's the journey.
And then it all went downhill from there. Mate, I've watched your journey from not too far away. We've done, you know, we've had lots of conversations, and we've threatened to do work together and speak on the same stages. And at some point in the future, our paths will very much align, because you think similarly to me, right? Your approach to leadership is more. It's not one I hear very often, because it's about the value that all of the team can contribute to the organization. But you talk about leadership as an absolute privilege, being in a privileged position to lead those that you have care over. I imagine that attitude comes from your army background, but then it permeates everything that I guess leadership going forward should be about. Is that right? Is that a good summary of what how you see leadership?
Yeah, it is. It's spot on, Nick, and it's not a threat. We will do something amazing together at some stage. But no, like where that comes from for me, it was probably founded in good old John Adair's leadership model, which is like the fundamental one taught at Sandhurst. So a leader's job is to balance the needs of the task team and the individual at any one time, and those needs might be competing from time to time. But for some reason, I think when I first learned that, and it's sort of grown in me and sort of percolated and marinated over the years, but I kind of hear that, I think, on a deeper level. My fundamental belief really is that a leader's job is twofold. It's to deliver the results for which we're accountable, and then it's to look after the people that we've got the privilege and responsibility to lead. And that second bit really comes from the fact that every single person we are privileged and fortunate enough to lead, they're the most important person in the world to somebody else. They're somebody's mum, dad, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, whatever. And how a leader acts and behaves and what they does, it doesn't just affect that person that works for them between 9 till 5 when they're at work or in front of their team screen at home. It has an impact on every aspect of their life, and it impacts on their family. So there's part of me that thinks like a leader's got no right to kind of have that continual negative impact on people, because we will do from time to time. We will have a negative impact because work is tough and we have to make big requests of people and there's stress that comes with it, but we can't consistently do that. But then the flip of that is it's also our duty, I believe, to sort of inspire and motivate and nurture and make sure we can bring the best out of those that work for us, for them and for the business. So that's what leadership is for me, I guess, at its heart.
Yeah. What do you think the challenges are now, or have been over the last 12 months of kind of people working from home, different environments? Okay, so we were all, most of us, some were working from home, pre-pandemic stages, but most of us were in a workplace. Our managers, our line managers, our leaders were there around us. We were surrounded by great people and we were working together as a team. And all of a sudden we've got all stripped away and we've had to adapt very quickly in most cases to, as your words were, sitting on Teams and Zoom and all those other platforms. And that's a very different way of now leading. I'm going to give a couple of examples here, but I know someone, I'm not going to give too much away here, but I know someone that is on a Teams meeting every single day with the team, and they last for like almost 2 hours. And this is not a small corporate, by the way. This is a large organization, very large. The name has been mentioned on this show throughout this, not by yourself, but by Nick earlier. Rewind back and see who it was. But do you think these are challenges? How are people adapting to it? Are they still able to lead like they did? Are different leaders now finding it tough, but new leaders are coming through, being on digital platforms, as they can do it differently and better?
It's a brilliant question, David. I think there are loads of challenges the past 14 months have presented us. I also genuinely believe it's brought lots of opportunities as well as challenges. This isn't so much a challenge. I think the past 14 months has highlighted has highlighted the true leaders, and it's also highlighted those people who are maybe in the position of leadership of a large organization, but were doing a lot of managing that organization rather than truly leading it, almost administrators of that organization. I think that's really shown a light on it. I think some of the big challenges are right now, I think the world is tired. The workforce is tired from multiple lockdowns, from working from home, having some freedoms restricted. Those that weren't furloughed have often been asked to work harder. So the world is tired, and that's a challenge for leaders. How do you lead an exhausted team when you're exhausted yourself and you're uncertain about the future? So that's been difficult. I think the other challenge, which again links with kind of what you guys have been talking about this morning, links to relationships. It's quite easy, I think, as a leader to forget that not everyone's in the same boat as you, and to assume that kind of everybody's experience is really similar. Like, I wish I knew who said this. There's a brilliant phrase I heard kind of March last year. Someone said, "Don't tell me we're all in the same boat, because we're absolutely not. What we are all in is the same storm, but people are in very different boats," right? Some people are desperately clinging to a piece of driftwood. Some people are in their massive super yacht, hardly noticing that there's a storm out there. So the really real example of this, kind of, he was mentioning it again at the start. I was with a live group, face to face, 14 people in a room on Monday and Tuesday. First time these people have been together, leadership team have been together since October. And my agenda went out the window. We pretty much spent 3.5 hours, people just talking about their experience of the last 6 months. And one person said, "We need this. We need 6 months of coffee machine chats that we've not had." and they all had wildly different experiences. And there was this almost tension within lots of them. On the one hand, they were desperate to be back in the office at least 3 or 4 days a week and seeing people, but at the same time, they were still a little bit anxious and nervous about what that would look like. So like trying to understand that as a leader is going to be a challenge. It almost doesn't make sense, and you've got to be happy with the fact that there's not going to be so much logic to how people are feeling right now. I think that's one of the biggest challenges.
It is. I think there's a whole host of challenges as soon as we kind of lift that stone. Every step of the way, there are challenges that we weren't expecting. You know, who would have thought, right? We would struggle to get back into face-to-face conversations, most natural thing in the world, right? And then suddenly we're out of practice. Like most things, you get out of practice, and actually it's a bit harder than you thought to get back on the bike. You know, all the skills are still there, and it will come back, but it represents a real challenge. One of the challenges, oddly enough, I'm currently dealing with in another project is those environments where those face-to-face conversations have never been the norm, right? So working with kids that are so immersed in their technology that they don't know how to have a face-to-face conversation, and the last 12 months, 14 months hasn't helped that because they've not been in the classroom a great deal. So yeah, big challenges coming. You're not afraid of a big challenge. Hi, mate. You like a challenge.
I do indeed. Yeah.
How did the I know you're a cycling fan. How did the Tour de France challenge come about? Because that's not something that everyone would say, well, that sounds like a nice idea. I'll pack my sandwiches and off I go.
As with many things, it's something that just evolved. So I started cycling, road cycling, probably 10 years ago when the government of the day first launched the cycle to work scheme, and I was commuting, getting stuck in traffic, and I thought, this is just dead time. So I thought, I'll buy a bike, see how long it takes me. And it kind of only took me 10 minutes longer than it was in the car because I was moving more. So that was kind of where it started, and gradually did an event like a 60 miler, then thought I'll do a 100 miler. And I was flicking through a magazine and I read that you could cycle one mountain stage of the Tour de France on an event called Étape du Tour. So I got together a group of equally sort of crazy mates, and a few of us went and did that, which was a bit nuts, really. I don't think I would particularly do that again, because you get like thousands of people who all think they're Bradley Wiggins or Lance Armstrong, and actually they're in the Tour de France, and it's just very sketchy, and you see some horrible crashes. And then it was the power of networking, really. I was bumped into a guy at a networking event who said, you should have a chat with my boss, he's into cycling. Met him for a coffee, and he told me about this amazing charity. It used to be called Tour de Force, it's now called Le Loop, which organise riding the Tour de France for charities. You can either do a few stages, or you can do the whole thing if you're crazy enough, and you raise money, and it kind of basically supports young people in sort of underprivileged areas where they've got lots of opportunities to make wrong choices instead of the right choices. So I thought, that sounds good. Maybe I'll give that a go. How hard can it be? But again, it's a good business lesson, because it was that classic thing of breaking it down into small steps. So I said, okay, I'm not going to go straight in and do it. Or maybe I'll do it for the year of my 40th. And the first thing I did was I signed up to do 3 stages with the charity. So I did the 3 mountain stages, which was my military terms. It was my recce. I went, learned the lessons, kind of trained for that. And then the next year went back and did the whole Tour de France. So
okay, so you were crazy enough then. Your words were you could do 1 or 2 stages, or if you're crazy enough, you do the full lot, and you did the full lot, so you're crazy. We have a picture actually, Nick. Ben. There it is. There we go. You and your bicycle, the one. This is obviously not the one you bought through government funding and then went on to do the Tour de France. I've never known that. Someone's got been given some funding to go and get a bike to ride to and from work, and it escalates into being let's ride around the Tour de France loop. And tick. That's a huge box ticked. obviously you must be super proud, and obviously done some great work for charity on the way as well.
Yeah, it was amazing. That was the interesting thing, actually. You start off, and many people said this, you start off and it's really just about riding the Tour de France. But it's about 3.5 weeks you're away. They bring out young people from the charity to see you. And the more as time passes, the more you really start to connect with the charity and just the amazing work that they do. So that was, it made it all the more special.
I think that's a massive lesson in life, right? If you're serious about it, go out and do it. Right? It don't have to be any good, but you've got to start somewhere, right? And we've all had this business journey, right? That brave moment. So you know what, I'm gonna do this. You speak to a lot of people saying, "I'd love to run my own business," but they never do. There's something slightly different about those that make that leap, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned. But those lessons are best done actively, right? You get out there, you get stuck in. I know Nick, no doubt, as is learning all the time, like the rest of us. Just one lesson after another, and hopefully, each one of those lessons that you learn, you survive, right? You survive and you learn and you progress. Yeah. And you've got a story, Ben. I know I've heard this story before, but our listeners, I imagine, won't. I guess one of the stark moments where you really appreciated what leadership really is, and this goes back to your army days. This is a story in Iraq. It's the 2-man sniff test. Are you able to talk about that briefly for us before?
Yeah. How long do we have?
Can you wrap it up in 1 minute?
Yeah. Okay. So. Iraq 2003, at the time we thought Iraq had chemical biological weapons. Just as the campaign started, we believed we'd been subjected to a chemical or biological attack. And after you've done a whole series of tests, the final test a military unit will do before asking everybody to take their mask off is basically you will potentially risk 2 soldiers' lives and ask them to take a tiny sniff of poisonous air and see if they're okay in order to prove that it's safe for everybody else to take their masks off. So thinking it was real at the time, I had to give that order, but it wasn't an order, it was a request. That they followed and asked 2 soldiers to lift their masks and take a sniff of potentially fatal poisoned air.
Wow.
That's leadership. Leadership doesn't get tougher than that, does it? And that harks back to the responsibility that anyone in a position of leadership, you don't have to be the leader, but leadership across, in clubs and families and sports and any part of your life, that there's some serious responsibility if you're serious about, showing people the way forward. Right, be great, mate, great. And once again, should have you back on because there's so many more things I want to ask you about, and so many more lessons for us to learn. But I don't know whoever said this show should only be an hour. David, we've got too much content, my friend.
I know, and we've got so many great guests, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here this morning, Ben. And I'm sure you've got so many more stories you could share. But as Nick said, get the stage. What we'll do is we have to get a trio going, and we'll spend a whole day sharing sharing the great stories. It'd be great to obviously meet you in person as well. So, Ben Morton, thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning. Don't go anywhere. Sit in the green room. We'll bring you both back once we're off the air and we can ching on our virtual coffees. So, Ben, thank you very much, and we'll catch you again very soon. Oh, well, Nick, it's been an exciting show, but we are down to the dying few seconds. Summary, Nick, of today's show in a few words?
Blooming marvellous, my friend. Great guests, as always. Really insightful, lots to learn, lots of business stuff to learn, lots of life stuff to learn. As always, I feel much richer at the end of the show than at the beginning. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And don't forget, we're back here next week, 8 a.m. Thursday morning for just that 1 hour. But then the the 11th, 12th and 13th. We will be broadcasting live every day from the virtual EXSE studio, where we will be talking to great speakers, fantastic sponsors, and those are attending the virtual business show. I'm just going to pop that back on the screen before we wave goodbye. EXSE.co.uk. Come and see Nick and I. Come along and hear our talks. Come along and listen to all the other great speakers and be part of a fantastic event. I think that's all we've got time for this week, Nick. We'll be back next Thursday as normal from 8 o'clock. So goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Bye-bye.